Hey, I have no idea which video this is, but we've been sitting here, we forgot about the charging, and we let the charging go a little bit too long because Mickey has us completely distracted. I have never seen such a chill cat in my life. This guy just loves laying in the sun. He's sprawled across Victoria's lap here, or cradled in her lap there, and his head's hanging upside down. Paws are up. I've never. Freaking awesome cat. Yeah. If it weren't for Jaeger, man, I so have this cat. Trinity would just go ape for him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, his head's up a bit.
So now we're back on the road.
Okay, so where were we? Crazy freaking accountants.
Got past that. Now, turning point for you.
Oh, I have to turning points.
I know.
Lots of turning points.
But, you've delved into the elephant, you're working away, doing real estate, taking care of the fam jam.
Worms.
You got into worms.
Okay, well, I got into worms originally in 2007. And that was to grow for the family and cut back on the food costs and grow organic as much as possible. And I never thought of it as a business other than, Julian selling them on the curbside to fishermen for the trout worms, not Canadian night crawlers. We never even delved into Canadian night crawlers until I turned it into a business. Yeah, I was juggling everything. When you're with a partner who just, okay, let's get into the narcissistic personality disorder.
In the midst of all this, you had and then you had a partner who was working against you.
Yeah. Everything that could possibly be done against me was being done against me, or sabotaging me, or my efforts. And of course, that person having narcissistic personality disorder will deny everything and turn everything on me and cause me to look like the crazy one.
Which is classic.
Yeah. Gaslighting. I'm the crazy one, would say things behind my back while I'm standing there.
Mm-hmm.
Sabotaging, never contributing, never providing for the family. Whatever was provided for was actually taken back. Like, give me $1,000 and $1,500 was spent. And I was the sole supporter of the family for the longest time, even before the little ones came along. Now, I will always say I was common law under duress. I don't feel like we were actually common law, because that would insinuate that we had a relationship. Everything, it was just...
Everything was not hunky-dory. Nothing was
hunky-dory for years. From the beginning.
Yeah.
There was a lot of red flags. I didn't know they were red flags. Well, at first, the first few years, yes.
We brought this up when it was the way that it was presented to you as support as a single mother. There were certain things that were made easier for you, that were better for you. It's the love bombing, right? It's the love bombing point of it.
He played the long game with me.
He did.
Now, do we talk about Julian's father?
Let's put that as, he's 6 feet under now.
Yeah, but that was also another relationship where there was abuse going on, and I was... Okay, so that was a love bombing relationship. Didn't know, everybody thinks that storybook romances or the rom-coms and the Hollywood love is the real love, and it's not.
No.
Love isn't, like, a real healthy relationship doesn't move fast. It takes its time, and you get to know each other. Julian's father and I were together 3 months, I think, before I got pregnant, and even that is a situation I don't want to talk about everything. I do want to be transparent as possible, upfront, honest, and everything. But some things are just personal. But he proposed to me when I was 11 weeks pregnant with Julian, and of course I said yes because here I have a baby on the way, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Fast forward, signs were starting after I had Julian. The day I had Julian, that's when I knew things weren't right. His whole personality changed that day. And then things progressed. He suddenly started working longer and longer hours. I wasn't getting any, there was no real contribution to anything that I can recall. I was on maternity leave. I told him that he was to pay the utility bills. I'll take care of everything else. I had renters living upstairs. I was living in the basement of my house. This is the house that is currently under, the unethical mortgage. But I was living in the basement, and we were making arrangements for our wedding. I didn't. We're back. Fancy schmancy wedding I did not want. We were trying to do it low budget. I was only working part-time when I went back to work. I had a part-time permanent position at Canada Post. He was supposed to take over the utility bills, but he was working all these hours, not coming home. He started physically changing now. Started growing his hair longer. Like when I met him, he was clean cut, professional, management, all this stuff. And then all of a sudden he started taking on this biker look, this biker persona. And he started wearing cologne to work. And of course, these are all signs that I knew were of extramarital affairs. And I couldn't pinpoint it because he's telling me that he's going to work and he's management and he had to work all these long hours, and his his boss started a driving school. He was a truck driver manager, and suddenly he's the instructor for truck driving school. And that's where all his extra hours were, and then he was covering for drivers on weekends. And my dad, Sixth Sense, kept on saying he doesn't want to get married. And I'm like, yeah, thanks for your support. I'm really happy that you feel this way, Pops. I called my dad Papa or Pops.
You could see something that you, at the time, couldn't.
I could see
it. But the acknowledgement.
I didn't want it to be true.
Yes. Denial. Denial's a river in Egypt, and it was present in your life.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Father's Day weekend. It seems to be a repeating theme in my world. Father's Day weekend was the ride for sight, and we both had motorcycles. My sister and her then boyfriend, who became her husband later, offered to babysit for us. It was our first time away from Julian. It was an opportunity for us to both ride and together, and have some fun. And Heidi got to take care of Julian, which she was just so happy with Julian. She loved him so much. And so we were supposed to meet with another couple while we were, and then meet up, go to the ride for sight at the International Center on Airport Road. So we went to the rendezvous spot, and the couple turned out to be just her. Just her. And she looked at me like, what are you doing here? And apparently she was one of his employees. And here she is, this hot little thing. It was clear as day that she had experience in the exotic dancing world. And she suddenly, pulls out this silver cigarette case to give to him. Apparently she thought of him when she saw it when she was traveling down. She was a truck driver.
Just fucking weird.
Yeah, which is just totally weird. And inappropriate in front of his fiancée that he's about to marry weeks away. And, because our initial wedding day was supposed to be July 8th, 2001. And this is June 16th, 2001. Or June 15th, sorry, because it was the next day. So, my spidey senses were tingling pretty freaking good that day. Especially when I was totally ignored. We were supposed to be riding in tandem, him and I next to each other, and her fiance were supposed to be next to each other, but it was, and we're back. The internet keeps on cutting out. So, I don't know where it cut out at, but anyway, we were supposed to be riding side by side, and instead they rode side by side, and they just couldn't stop talking to each other, and the body language and everything, and I'm riding behind them, and I'm watching all this going on, and here's supposed to be this time where, when I was riding a motorcycle, it was supposed to be one of the greatest days to have, as my first day out as a new mom, and I'm watching my entire life with this man fall to pieces, because I could see, I'm not an idiot. They treated me like I was an idiot, but I could see everything that was going on there was a relationship going on. And at one point I couldn't handle watching it anymore, and I bailed out on the ride for sight and turned myself around and rode straight back to Mississauga, sat by the lake for a while, like, what the hell am I going to do? And here I am, a single mom. The greatest fear of ever was being a single mom at that time. That was the fear I came up with for that time. And then I went back home to be with my son, because Julian was the light of my life. He gave me every reason to be a better person and to keep my shit together. Now at this point, nothing was confirmed of what was going on. It was still all speculation. But his father never came home that night. Excuse me. His father never came home that night. He was not to be reached. Cell phones were still simple flip phones. I was running low on formula. I had to pack my baby up. Julian was only 7 months old at this time. I had to pack my baby up and take him in the middle of the night to go to the nearest drugstore to pick up formula, because I was hoping his father would come home and I'd be able to grab formula on his way, because, I was still believing he was a responsible adult who cared about his kid. And he didn't. And the next day he didn't come home all day. I didn't know anything that was going on at all. Eventually he came home around 5 o'clock. What was that? I need a drink of my coffee. And he said to me, "I don't love you enough to marry you." That was Father's Day.
Oof. Yep.
And I said, okay. And I was speechless.
As many people would be.
I don't know what the hell was wrong with me that day. All of a sudden, with my left hand, and I'll admit to this, I did it. I didn't think about it. It just happened. My left hand It was a knee-jerk reaction. I swear to God, I would never do something like this with thought or contemplation or maliciousness at all. But I grabbed him by the crotch, and I swear to you, I twisted.
Oof. Oof. Oof.
I'm proud of it. But like I said, transparency and honesty here. I wasn't out of anger. I wasn't out of hurt. It was, like I said, left-handed. It was not my right hand. Subconsciously, somewhere in my brain, something got triggered, and
Twist the balls.
I gave it to him. It's not funny.
It's funny.
It's funny.
It's funny.
Because every woman's dream would be to do that.
Exactly. You did what many a woman wanted to do.
Yeah. So yeah, there was that. Sent him on his way packing. I always with the intent to take care of, protect my child. I sent him with enough stuff that he would be able to start over and still have Julian's best interest in mind wherever he was planning to start over. I took the keys, but his motorcycle was actually my motorcycle.
Oof.
So the very first thing I asked for was the keys to the bike, and that just killed him. That killed his ego. Oh, yeah. He thought he was going to get the motorcycle out of the deal, and it was my house, and he was supposed to take care of the utilities. That's when the bills started rolling in for the first time in my life that utility bills were behind. He was not taking any responsibility at that point, and it was unbeknownst to me because he was supposed to be paying. He told me he was paying them. And then I started opening the mail. And then the hardest part was that because we were getting married and we had a child, I had all the wedding bills that were, like, all the deposits, everything. My wedding dress, invitations were out. I had to admit it was all, like, we were 3 weeks away from our wedding day. And I was a jilted bride. Left a single mother. Not cool in my family world. We're, I raised Catholic, European, not cool. I was not left in a good position. And fortunately, my parents were very good to me in that regard. They loved Julian very much, and they saw what the truth was. Yeah, I finally gave him a male heir.
Yeah.
So, my birthday's June 27th. And, 1969. So that day, a couple of weeks later, when I was 16 to the 27th, 11 days later, he shows up to visit Julian. And I thought he was there to, wish me a happy birthday, still thinking that, maybe his sense is going to come into him. And he was happy and totally cool. And I tell you, when I say I have seen the devil and looked him straight in the eyes, that was one of the first times that my blood ran cold, because I watched someone turn from happy and joyful and perky, and I'm thinking, this is maybe, there's something, hope, maybe anything better than the torture I was going through, the tears and torment. And at this point, he still didn't admit to cheating. And he turned around, and I'm on my way back to work. My mom was taking care of Julian for me, and he turns around as I'm heading back to my work truck, and he goes, "I want the engagement ring back." And I swear to God, that moment where I grabbed and twisted before, that escalated to absolute rage. He threatened me with court to get that ring back. He threatened me with all sorts. He's the one that left the situation and lied about it. Okay, karma is a real thing.
Yeah.
He did get the ring back. I gave it to him because I did not want the toxic environment. I wanted peace. I wanted as much as possible to have. I didn't want to be angry. I didn't want to be hurt. I didn't want to be fighting in court. I didn't have the money for court. Because I was paying all the wedding bills. I didn't have the backbone to fight it. I could have stood up to him and said, fuck you, but I didn't. I wanted to be a healthy, happy person for my son. And functional. But that day on my birthday, my mom and his mother were on suicide watch. They thought I was going to kill myself that night. Unfortunately, I only had, I did have lorazepam in my possession. I only had 2 tablets, and both of those women thought I was going to kill myself with 2 tablets. But
not quite how it works, but, you know.
It's, yeah. I'm sorry. We shouldn't be talking about, I don't know how that's going to be a response on,
You know what it is?
any of this violent talk. I don't know how, if the algorithm's going to pick it up.
We can axe it out in editing.
Yeah, it's
but
live
even
right
that, you know what it is, though? When you go through, and I know this person myself, when you go through stuff like thinking about ending your life, and you have those that care for you around. Look, oh, we're back.
Oh, we're back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't talk about unaliving because I don't want to risk losing any of this, but
you go through the situation, you look back, and you think about how you survived.
well, Julian was my main purpose in life. Nothing else. Julian was what kept me alive and breathing, and it was a very difficult time, especially when I got the phone call from his father saying that 4 weeks after our wedding day, he married the other one.
Yeah.
He didn't even know her. Didn't live with her. Well, he did. He went straight from my house to her house.
Yeah.
And then
another huge red flag. When a man needs a place to live.
What's that called? Hobosexual?
Yes, hobosexual.
Yeah, hobosexual.
Yeah.
He was definitely a hobosexual because, and then there's so much more to this story with regards to what went on during that time. It was constant trauma after trauma to the point where it was a tit for tat thing, and it kept on escalating, and it got to the point where a year later, I met the biggest problem of my life.
Yeah, the big narcy.
The big narc, yeah, the capital N, capital A, capital A, yeah. That one played the long game, and he played it very well. Because I did not want to get into another relationship. I knew that once you go through a breakup, you really got to take time and not rush into anything.
Especially when you have kids together.
Yeah, and I had Julian, who was at that point 19 months old, and he used my son to manipulate his way into my world.
He should appear as support.
We'll call him X, because X does not deserve a name, because that name will ruin it for all other names.
We settled on this after it being many variety of colorful curse words.
Oh yes, we've had many colorful curse words, and that's just toxic and negative, and I already had enough of my plate full of crap. So X it became.
Letter X.
He doesn't know that, but
no, but
everybody in my world knows exactly who I'm talking about when I say X, and I don't mean capital X, I mean little X.
Yeah.
Little man. So, Julian's father, X, started manipulating his way and making himself look great with my son. So how do you get into a single mom's heart is through her children, make them happy and all that stuff. And he's playing with my Julian, and This was...
I'm trying to reconnect.
Oh, it's back. That was quick.
Yeah.
Hi. So anyway, tit for tat was going on, and it kept on escalating, and
Between you and Dad.
Julian's father and me, and he kind of backed off a little bit when he found out I had another man in my life, which gave me some relief. That was another thing that Victoria was talking about with regards to how X manipulated his way in, and why my guards were down, was because I was exhausted as a single mom. I was so exhausted, and here's this person that comes along that lets me sleep in and makes a bottle for my kid first thing in the morning. So, like, it was a bit of a treat that way. 100% of the load was taken off my shoulders. Like, there was every time Julian left to go with his father for child access, he was screaming and crying. He didn't want to leave me. That was hard on me. It was, I didn't want to let him go. I never wanted to let him go, but that was, he had every right to see his son, and I had no control of the situation. I saw pictures later in life where, my son had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth at 2 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and a bottle of Corona, and dressed up like a biker, and all sorts of crazy shit. And I knew that there was a lot of alcohol consumption going on. I'm not a big drinker. I'm a social drinker once in a while. I'll say right up front that, yes, there was a time where I almost got lost to the bottle, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Bounced back.
I bounced back.
Yeah.
I do have a history of opioid addictions, but that was later. 2003, I broke my back. I fractured a vertebrae on the job, and I was introduced to Tylenol 3s and the magic they weave until, you're chasing the tail of the dragon, and they don't weave magic anymore. They just keep on weaving withdrawal symptoms that you're chasing with more and more pills. And X was part of that addiction. Him and his mother actually fed me. That was part of the narcissist ploy. They kept me on a steady supply. Actually, all three of them did, his brother as well. They kept me on a steady supply, keep her dumb and stoned, or stupid and stoned, is what I said.
Trapped with kids?
Yeah, trapped with a kid at that time.
Yeah.
So Julian's father found out I had another man present in my world around his son, and one time X was playing with my son, and he was just doing a harm. I was there. There was no harm involved at all. There was no physical malintent or anything going on. He was actually playing with him, and he left them little hickeys on his, he was just pulling, kissing his cheeks. He had chubby little cheeks, and X would pull Julian away, lift him away, and he left little fucking hickeys on his face. And as soon as I realized what was happening, I told him to stop, because I was so terrified, because there was so much anger and toxicity between Julian's father and I, that I was afraid that something, he would misconstrue it somehow. And he did. And he had Children's Aid take my son away from me. And that was my first investigation with Children's Aid. When my son was approximately 2 years old, I had to fight with Children's Aid to get my child back. And that's when I said that this is where I started to learn, don't respond. Don't respond. Don't react. Because the more angry I got, the more vicious I got, the more toxic I got, the more destructive I became.
It was ammunition.
And it just kept on escalating. And at this point, the worst was, it could only get worse.
And he used it as ammunition against you.
And yeah, it would just keep coming back at me. And for some reason, it came into my head, stop. Just stop. let those two, because there was so much drama centered around me that Julian's father and his new wife never really got to know each other. They just blamed all their problems on me. So when I stopped, it actually made Brian shit his pants. Because he was expecting me to really blow up after that one. He was anticipating, and it was that time of absolute peace where I felt good. I felt, okay, you know what? Just let those two get to know each other. Let them. Because as soon as and this is what happened, was I let them, and they self-destructed with each other. The problem is, I had my own little drama going on in my world. Ex's family was interesting, to say the least. And then it wasn't long after that I fractured my vertebrae. I had sold my motorcycle because I came to some kind of realization after a road rage incident. I was just driving home from work. I was minding my own business, and somebody cut me off, and then they started road raging on me. I wasn't doing anything, and I, wasn't responding to this crap, but it was like the devil it kept on, evil just kept on being attracted in my direction for some reason. And I came to the conclusion that it was safer for me to not own a motorcycle and not ride a motorcycle in the city, so I sold my motorcycle. Because the conclusion was, I don't want to parent from a casket or a wheelchair.
And motorcycles are extremely dangerous after you have kids. It's unnecessary risk. That's what you've told me was going through your head after that.
Yeah. You don't know when the next idiot's going to cut you off and put you in a ditch or whatever, especially in the city. Like, country, like if I lived in an area like we're driving through now, I might own a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And ride it around and enjoy the scenery, but not in the city. Not in Mississauga. There's just too much shit going on now. Too much unpredictable crap. And that was the end of my motorcycle riding days. I'll ride on the back with somebody I trust. Nobody else, though. I won't, and it has to be backcountry roads like this.
And you have had that experience.
And I have, yeah. Actually, that's part of what's coming in 2017 story.
Yeah. But going back from X and the developments, like when they got to know each other, what changed, like, getting that going, what changed from him and his reactions towards you? Julian's dad.
Eventually, their relationship imploded, and he moved on to somebody else, and that was his supply. He took, back in the day when I was going through it all, a lot of people said to me, that was a lucky break that you got from, good riddance. Don't be thankful this happened, because now you know what the true character is of this person. And I was just hurting. Like, I was really hurting, and I'm thinking, how can these people say these things to me?
It's only when you're out of it do you realize.
Well, no, it became very clear with the wife after, the one after me. And I feel sorry for her. She was, okay. This is a story and a half in its own right, my God. Julian's father eventually stopped seeing Julian. He abandoned him outright. He stopped paying child support. He stopped visiting and having access with him.
Told him he wouldn't be seeing him.
No, I didn't. I didn't tell him.
Brian told Julian that.
Oh, yeah. Eventually, yeah. With that last Christmas when after Trinity was born, that he took him aside and told him. But I was never told anything. I didn't know until after he had left the country that Julian's father had left the country, moved to the Bahamas, and he'll never be paying child support again. He'll never be seeing Julian again. I was told by his sister and his mother, I don't know how they found out or whatever, but at that point he had already been in arrears of child support for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden I got this lump sum of money that he owed, and I'm like, something's up here. And like, why did I suddenly get all this money all at one time? Well, apparently he liquidated, or she liquidated everything. And in order for him to get his passport back, because once you get in arrears of child support, all of your federal and provincial licenses are revoked, including your passport and your driver's license, and liens are placed against your properties and like all sorts of stuff. So in order for him to get his passport back to move to the Bahamas, something in my eye, you have to pay your arrears. Now, he was actually facing a bench warrant at one point to go to court. So he had actually escaped, he left the country, never paid another dime of child support. Bahamas does not have a reciprocal agreement with Canada. It does with Saskatchewan. This is what I learned over the time while I was doing my investigations. And Saskatchewan has an agreement for reciprocal. So if somebody were to move to the Bahamas and they're in child arrears, Saskatchewan can go after that child support, but the rest of it, Canada can't. It's the weirdest freaking thing I had ever seen. Saskatchewan. So I could never go after him. Alright. We'll let karma take care of him. In the meantime, I've got X mooching his way through life with me.
You have a child together now?
No. Because up until Trinity was born, the man never paid a single dime towards anything when it comes to living expenses or rent or anything like that, even though he pretty much had weaseled his way in. And I tried to throw him out so many times, and he manipulated his way. Which is the MO of a narcissist, unbeknownst to me, because I didn't think I was being abused. He wasn't hitting me. I wasn't being abused. I was being lied to. I was being manipulated. I was gaslighted. I was being exploited financially. I was all the other pieces of the power and control wheel. Jealousy. I was to curb what I was to say. Whatever I talked about had to be.
Whenever you were in a room and he walked in, he would just overpower anything he had to say.
Yeah. Everything he said, he had to be the center of attention of. I was never, for years, I had difficulty, go figure, especially after all these hours of talking straight. I was blocked from ever finishing a sentence. There was a time when I was doing my real estate license and I was spending 3 weeks in Niagara Falls with classmates doing my course 3, and I didn't realize it until then, and this is 2010, I couldn't finish a sentence anymore. Go figure, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking for how many hours now?
No one would guess it, but this is the truth, people.
Yeah. All those years had actually conditioned me to the point where I couldn't finish a sentence. I would start a sentence and start explaining something, and then all of a sudden it would be
waiting for someone to cut you off, or waiting for
exactly.
someone to finish it for you.
Yeah.
Or, thinking, I can actually do this, I can actually finish this. That's a whole new world, and that must have been a huge shock to you.
Yep.
That's a huge moment.
Why did I have 2 children with him? Because I didn't want my oldest son to be an only child, and I was getting up there in age.
And you already know what the experience of being the only one is.
Yeah. And by 2008, Heidi had already been diagnosed with cancer. 2007, I had Trinity, and then as I was finding out I was pregnant with Gabriel, she was finding out that she was She had terminal lung cancer. So it was a happy and a sad time. Horrible time. And with everything going on, no matter how many times I had tried to get him out, he wouldn't leave.
He came, crawled back to the kids.
This kind of person was so selfish, that his firstborn child, her birthday, he went fishing on her birthday party. Your firstborn child, you don't abandon a birthday party to go fishing. It's just, you don't.
Yeah. And he did.
And he did. Now, there were benefits to his presence, as, the more responsibilities were put on my shoulders. I needed somebody there for the kids. I needed somebody to make sure their needs were taken care of, which was done for the most part. They were happy kids with their father. He was able to spend more time. He never worked. He barely worked.
So he was always home.
He was always home, and he was available to the kids. And meanwhile, I was taking on a career at the same time as working full-time for Canada Post, midnight shift, at the same time as taking care of my dad when he was going to oncology appointments. I was, I was juggling everything. And the one thing that the load was lifted with was taking care of the basic needs of the kids. Yeah, he would make them lunches and he would take them to school, but he wouldn't give any financial assistance. My kids have never known a family vacation. One thing I always wanted for my children was to take them to Disney World, but there was never enough money to do that kind of luxury. But there was always plenty of money for him to go on fishing trips, buy boats, buy trucks. He would make financial decisions that didn't include me, and that I ended up bearing the burden of all the time. This is what living with a narcissist looks like.
Yeah.
I was lied to constantly. They were feeding me Tylenol 3s like they were candy. I was taking them because I was an addict. I was in pain because I didn't know that the side effects of withdrawals is more pain. And I would tell him, eventually I came to the realization, I don't want this anymore. I don't want these pills. But he knew all he had to do was shake them in front of me, or I could hear them rattling in his pocket, and all of a sudden that addiction would take over. And he'd give them to me, and then he'd yell at me. And then he'd call me crazy, and he was doing more weed than that would knock over a rhino. Money, $240 every 2 weeks, was going just to weed. You can't tell me that weed isn't addictive when you see it to the degree that I saw it. If he didn't have his weed, he was absolutely freaking miserable, and he was having flu-like symptoms and laying on the couch telling me how he has a migraine. Until I got him, found the money for him to buy some weed with. He didn't drink. He didn't hit me.
But if you wanted the support, you had to forego everything.
Yeah.
You had to give everything. You had to work so that he would be functional. To do the little bit that he did.
Yeah, the little bit that he did. He would say he did laundry, but meanwhile, the family closet, the dining room table was our family closet. They would never get put away. Dishes, oh my God. I came home from giving birth to my daughter, having a C-section, and I came back to 3 days worth of dishes piled up in the sink. I'm healing from a C-section, and nobody else was doing work around the house. I had to do it. my dad yelled at me because I had to empty out the kiddie pool because it was turning green and attracting mosquitoes, and nobody else would lift it up. Now, okay, so go back. I broke my back. He suddenly, mysteriously, a month later, like I fractured a vertebrae in my back and I messed up a whole bunch of discs above and below my T11 vertebrae. And I had to take time off work. I was down. I was injured on duty. I had no income during that time. WSIB refused to pay for the longest time. I think 2 weeks off they allowed me, and then I had to fight for anything more than that. I was off for a year and a half. A month after that, he has this mysterious injury while at work because he wanted to be off too. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So a year and a half later, I finally get back. I can't return to my job because now I'm injured on duty and partially disabled. I'm limited in capability of what I can do. And I finally get back to work. I'm on a midnight shift. I'm trying. I'm stuck in a downtown Toronto, in a station down there. So I'm back at work in 2005. And okay, here's how God works. Here's a good one for you guys. November 2004. November, I usually schedule my physicals. I don't know why. It was always November was the magical number, and whatever depression or whatever I was going through, I rescheduled or I canceled that appointment for my physical. And a few months later, because I'm dealing with my back still, and I'm seeing my family doctor, and the receptionist goes to me, and I wish I could remember her name right now. But she was this cute little thing that was behind the desk, and she goes, "You haven't rebooked your schedule, your physical." And I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll do it in November. I missed it. Oh, well." And she goes, "No, we're going to book you in. You're in next month, and you're going to have your PAP. It's important for you to have your physical." And it's just like a little angel. She's, convincing me. I couldn't argue with this girl.
There was no.
There was no arguing with this one.
It was a statement.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah. I'm an Amazon. This little tiny thing. Yeah, I was a waiter. I was taller. There was no saying no to this little thing.
She had the willpower.
Yep. Had she not, I'd be dead today.
No.
The importance of a pap smear.
Extremely important.
Cervical cancer has absolutely no symptoms. You don't know you have it. The pap smears, that pap smear, had I missed it, I'd be dead today. Because of, had I delayed it until November, they wouldn't have caught it in time. So this is 2005. I had cervical cancer. Now, this is how God works. Sends you angels to intervene. And that was my angel in that time. If you had to... I got messages coming in. If you had to pick a cancer, the cancer I had... if you have to have cancer and you could pick a cancer, the cancer I had was the one you want to choose.
There is such a thing.
Yeah. But no matter what, you have that word pointed at you in your direction in your health, you still get fucked up over it. And I completely mentally fell apart after that. I had a breakdown, and I had to take a stress leave from work because it was just too much. I was working midnight shift. I was cancer. I had an ex that was not paying child support. I had a current whatever he was, not being a responsible adult in any way, shape, or form. And, playing his little friggin' games. And I had to take another year and a half off with the cancer and the breakdown. The idea of going to another midnight shift, all of that just did me in. But eventually that's what led me to CAMH. I wanted help. I wanted to be a better parent. I wanted to be the best person I could be for, I woke up one day and it was just like, what kind of life is this for yourself or for your kid? You need help. And that's when I actively started finding mental health help and receiving it and doing whatever I could to be the best person I could be. It is challenging, but it's worth it. I spent a year in CAMH from 2007 to 2008. I hold that out of all of my diplomas and certificates and everything I've done, and I've got 18 or 19 diplomas and certificates in total, and licenses. That is the one that was the most important achievement of my life. Graduating from CAMH. I was on an outpatient basis. Once a week I would go in there for 4 hours, group therapy and one-on-one therapy. I was misdiagnosed by my family doctor. Oh my God, there's so many freaking details. I don't think a day is enough for this.
Right?
I was misdiagnosed at one point. I did take my son in to see the doctor, and that morning I had taken a Sudafed and a coffee, and that's honestly what's running me today on 3 hours sleep on Sudafed and coffee. Oh, and we're back. Sudafed and coffee, and my doctor at that time was a new doctor. I had changed doctors because the previous one, she was feeding me Tylenol 3s, and the cancer breakdown, she started yelling at me, and I didn't think that it was right to yell at a patient. So there was two reasons why I went with my new family doctor. I wanted to talk to him about my parents because they were my parents. He was my parents' doctor, and he was a former post. He understood the post office and how it worked. He did it during his university years, and he knew me as somebody who had been chronically depressed. And then one day I walk in with Julian, and I'm all bouncy and jittery because I had coffee and Sudafed. Clearly that's what's keeping my mouth running right now, as fast as it is after only 3 hours of sleep and doing all this driving. Mm-hmm. It's great cold medication, I tell you.
We'll get you there.
Yeah. So he said right away, took one look at me because I was not sitting down. I was playing with Julian. I was a little bit elevated in my mood. And he right away said, "You've got bipolar."
Yeah.
And this actually is pertinent to 2017. I'm like, "No, dude, I'm not bipolar. I had coffee and Sudafed, and this is how I am when I'm around, when I do that. It just gives me, it's the pseudoephedrine. It's a side effect of it." And he's like, "Nope, here's a prescription for lithium."
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. "And we're going to refer you to a mood disorder clinic." And I'm like, "Are you really think so? Do you really think this is the answer to all my problems?" I trusted the doctor. He was fairly new to me. I would have thought, that he had a standard of care that was above and beyond. I'm not a medical doctor. I just know stuff.
Yeah.
I know a lot of stuff. I'm educated in many different areas, including anatomy, physiology, the medical stuff. Nothing that I could legally practice anymore, but not that for any other reason than I've let everything lapse, and have no interest in doing so. But so the doctor insisted I was bipolar and wrote that down in my files and prescribed me this lithium. And I can't remember how long I was on lithium for because everything was just a freaking blur. But I'm going to assume it was anywhere from minimum. It was 3 months, nothing beyond 6 months, because I lost complete track of everything during that time. Because when you are given a drug that is, when you're misdiagnosed,
given the wrong drug,
and the treatment is inappropriate, it has certain side effects that aren't helpful. And I became a zombie during that time, and I practically couldn't remember my name, let alone had I taken my medications that day or anything like that. There's a whole span of time there. All I remember is that I couldn't remember if I took my meds or not. That's the only thing I remember from that time. And I went back to him and I said, this isn't right for me. I went to the mood disorder clinic. I did get booted out of there because they said I am not bipolar. They actually said after 2 or 3 meetings that I was borderline personality disorder, and so of course
makes a lot more sense.
But it's still not the correct diagnosis.
No, it's not.
I was misdiagnosed a number of times until I went to CAMH, and that's when they nailed it on the head. And I went to CAMH because of the diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. The only treatment that is effective with that is dialectical behavior therapy. And dialectical behavior therapy is such an amazing therapy that I feel they should, and I believe they should teach it in schools as a regular program for a part of the health program, because it is so effective in helping so many different things going on with people, and mood regulation, and just appropriate behavior. A lot of things going on with. If you're interested in it, you do the research on dialectical behavior therapy.
Sorry,
it's okay. No, it's just like, what kind of gluten you got going on there?
None for you. You hit your quota.
Yeah, I'm beyond my quota. Zero gluten for me. And I've had 2 doses of gluten already today. Anyway, where were we? CAMH, straightened my shit out, went for a year, 4 hours a week. After 6 months of one-on-one therapy and group therapy, my one-on-one therapist said to me, you don't have borderline personality disorder. Now, remember, during this time, 2007, 2008, hoarding disorder was not a recognized mental health disorder. However, as soon as she heard, this is a very experienced woman. She had many years of therapy behind her, and as soon as she started hearing, we're back. Every so often when I blank out like that, it's because there's no internet connection wherever I'm driving through. That should be one of the last ones, I think, judging from my experience on my way here. So CAMH, my therapist, many years of experience, she said to me back in the day before they took her ability to diagnose away just because they changed the laws or whatever. But back in the day when she was still qualified legally by law to diagnose, she would have diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is now identified for me as CPTSD, because it was constant stress, constant trauma, constant abuse. There was no let up. It was coming from all directions, because now I've got my parents doing their thing. Even though they physically stopped abusing me years and years and years ago, there was still emotional and psychological, and now I've got X doing it. And now, my sister gets diagnosed with terminal cancer, and then there's that freaking grief to everything.
You're always under duress. It's fight or flight.
Fight or flight.
Then you have to fight.
Yeah. I was something.
Point,
I was all over the place.
Yeah.
I was all over the place. Now, for 8 years, I had been on a number of antidepressants, and I found for me, now I won't recommend this to anyone. This was a personal choice. My meds kept on stopped working for me. They just stopped working. They would work for a while, and then they would not.
Well, fun fact with antidepressants, in case for those that don't know, every single one that you take from your first time on an antidepressant has up to a 25% chance of working less than the first one. So say you do 4, you're up to almost 100%, up to potentially 100% chance that it will not work for you, depending on how many ones you've done and what kind of chemical reaction you're trying to get within your brain to even things out.
And I'm going to say this right now, never go cold turkey with your antidepressants. Never. I had once or twice and did not know that you can't do cold turkey. At that time, boy, did I learn the hard way.
Yeah.
There's an instant tailspin into, but this is where worms actually saved me, ironically, weirdly, and I didn't know it because worms came into my life the same time I got myself off of antidepressants in 2007. I stopped taking them. I started embracing, I saw The Secret, that was amazing. I embraced a more positive outlook. I started choosing my thoughts, looking for the more positive. The Secret was and still is one of my favorite things to help people change their lives. If you're not familiar with the movie The Secret, please go look it up on Netflix or YouTube or whatever. It is a introduction into a whole new life. At least it was for me and a number of other people around the world. It's still famous for the gifts it gives. I became more controlled, doing more gratitude. In a time when I didn't have any therapy available to me, Secret came out in 2006, in a time when there was no therapy available to me, because there's waiting lists a mile long back then, and counseling was few and far between.
And the time to give to it in circumstances.
Yeah, and the money. There was a lot of money involved. Back then there was very little funding for mental health care.
Coverage for benefits and so now.
Yeah, I didn't have benefits then. Well, I rarely ever actually had insurance in my world, or health benefits.
But even then, the coverage, for my job that I'm getting into now, mile-long list of mental health coverage.
That's awesome.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
But they give you the history from, I think, 2005 for what they used to cover, and every year after that, how they changed it.
How they kept increasing.
Yes.
That's good.
And
that makes me happy.
Drastically different. Yeah.
Lives could be much more improved with mental health care.
Oh, yeah.
So, 2007. So 2006, I was introduced to The Secret, and I was already doing intentional positive thinking and gratitude, and like I'd already dabbled in stuff like that beforehand, but The Secret really put it all together for me, and it just clicked for me. It totally resonated with me, and I was able to. I had my aha moment with that. And then I had the worms come into my world. And I did not know this until a long time later when I was actually working with them. I went off my meds, my antidepressants. I still do have moments where I know I have to battle it out, and I got to fight real hard to against the darker thoughts. It's but that's tools in my toolbox that we'll discuss at some point. Oh, yeah. God almighty, we've got too much to talk about.
It's a lot, but you're laying out the foundations, and
I'm hoping we're building the house and getting to the roof soon.
I think the pivotal part is 2017.
Yeah, 2017 is definitely...
we're not quite there yet.
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
But it's also the shit that's, in the last year or two. So worms came in my life, and unbeknownst to me, gardeners, at that time, gardeners and hikers, when they're working with soils, they're hiking through forests, the compost, the leaf litter on the forest floor, there's a microbacterium that's activated in there called Microbacterium vaccae. And the same thing happens when you're working with worm composting. And I didn't have difficulties coming off and again, I do not recommend this. I did not have any difficulties coming off of my meds. I didn't have any side effects that time. But I also had 4 bins of, I think, 4 or 8 pounds of worms sitting in my kitchen floor, and I'm opening up and I'm feeding them, and I'm inhaling all this Microbacterium vaccae. Again, didn't know about it. I was just thinking, this feels great. Microbacterium releases a sense of relaxation and contentment, and is a natural antidepressant when you inhale it. So this is one of the reasons why I'm such a proponent of having worm composting inside your home or classroom or workspace, because it does do more than just save the planet. It saves your mind. It's amazing. But anyway, so for a few years, I really embraced choosing joy, choosing positivity, choosing, I learned a lot about how happiness is a choice. You do not have to suffer. You do not have to, you might have to work at it a little bit. That's where I'm going to say I've got tools in my toolbox. There's times where I am chemically challenged, and the people closest to me are aware of that I can have, I feel awful, and I have to work at it. And when I say work at it, I mean doing the gratitude journaling. I mean consciously getting the music playing. Working out is one of the best things for me to get this shit going. Shaking the shadows loose, the dark shadows in my brain loose. I have a walking pad, and I do whole body vibration therapy. I do meditation. These are all things that I have in my toolbox. I cannot believe I'm talking this long.
I can.
No, because we've never had conversations like this.
You know what it is? I've been there since 2017, and I've had the 8 years coming up to talk with you about all this stuff. it feels for you like it's a lot to talk about, but it's a lot that's happened.
It's a lot that's happened, and I'm trying to keep it coherent as well. And there's just so much information. There's so much going on. And like I said, if I were to sit and write a book, I don't even know where to begin. Well, I do. I've begun many times.
Yeah.
But how do you make it flow? And
Just going with it. You know?
I hope so. I hope I don't sound freaking manic at this point, knowing that I have the coffee in the suit if I didn't eat right now. But
But I think what's leading up here is the present. I don't know if we want to make it a separate video.
no, we got to stop, and at 5:16 is the next supercharging station.
36 minutes.
So let's talk about Heidi. Heidi was amazing woman, really amazing woman. She dedicated. She was born in 1955. She was loved by everybody from from childhood. She was very active in high school at Gordon Graydon Memorial Secondary School. I contributed after in her memory and to create my own memories with the high school reunion and the 65th reunion. I know if she was alive, she would have been right there cheering everybody on and helping out, and decorating, and I am still friends with a lot of her friends. Even though we are 14 years apart, I felt very comforted by the fact that they still, wanted to be friends with me. And we had our own, we created our own relationship, and the committee, the reunion committee, became very precious to me too in my experience. When Heidi was diagnosed, we couldn't have been more in denial about how, what her prognosis was. It had to have been a mistake, not Heidi, because Heidi was very health conscious. She didn't smoke. She was very active. She was a letter carrier. She was loved by all of her customers, all of her coworkers. If you needed help, she was there. She, give the shirt off her back. She loved animals. God, the woman was, she had so many pets. So many pets. She couldn't have children, which was really hard for me to accept when I had mine. That I was the one that was chosen out of the two of us to have children, and she wasn't.
So that's how it goes.
Pardon?
That sometimes
How it goes,
how it
yeah.
goes with, situations where one sibling wants it so bad and the other one seems to have it easier. Even friend groups,
Yeah.
want to go through IVF and adoption and all this stuff.
And she went through all that.
Yeah.
She tried so hard in so many different directions to have children.
That's why when Julia would talk about her relationship with Heidi and how much he valued it.
Yeah. Julian and Heidi were very close. She was my best friend. She was my sister. She was my first mom. She was, my mom was just too busy for me, and I was safer with my sister anyway, so. Wow, how many hours have we been doing this now?
Since 3 hours.
Yep. No, it's been longer than that.
Picking up at 1:30.
Yeah, I've been doing it since first
7:30.
hour. No.
10 something. Yeah.
So, Heidi's a touchy subject for me. The men she chose to have in her life was like in hindsight, it was very clear that we had already been set up for the cycle of abuse. There's always this image when there's a cartoon I had seen where the parents were hammers and the child was a nail, and the child was being pounded on by both her parents, the hammers, and then the image shows the grown-up child nail marrying another hammer. And that is how best to describe the cycle of abuse in imagery. It really, no pun intended, but it struck home with me when I saw that image. And yeah, Heidi was married 3 times. Heidi was also an independent woman to some degree, and it seems sometimes that when abusers, she was and she wasn't. That she was also still a cross of being raised in the 1950s housewife type, but she still had her independence, and she bought her house by herself. She was my role model in that way. She was 29 when she bought her house.
You're 28, right?
I was 28. She didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my parents.
Similarities.
Yeah. Well, I had to learn from somewhere.
Well,
Neither one of us told our parents that we bought a house until after it was too late and the deal was done. It was kind of a competition. I'd follow and see where she went in her life. I tried to beat it, and I did by 1 year. Where she zigged, I zagged. I paid close attention to my sister's life. I saw her get married 3 times, and I got engaged 3 times. I also saw the pitfalls of what divorce looked like, and by the time I, gone on and with X, I never wanted to get married. It just did not look appealing to me, and I had too much to lose, but he kept on trying. One of the things about, one of my theories was he was so happy to lock me in with children, and I will never regret my children. I love all 3 of my children. They were all gifts and blessings. Surprises, but gifts and blessings.
Best start.
Yep. I think I was, in a way, baby trapped. I think one of the reasons why he was feeding me so much Tylenol 3s was because it's inevitable when you consume that kind of a quantity. That liver disease, liver failure will happen if you don't catch it quickly. I don't know. I don't go to the doctors much anymore. I don't do tests anymore. I do not recommend that for anyone. My choices are my choices. What you do with your world, if you're, no medical advice given here. These are my choices. I just have spent far too much time in doctors' waiting rooms in my life and being diagnosed with this, that, and the other thing, all of them to be wrong, and that's my personal choice to actually visible or not. Oh, and there you guys are again. Hello. Keep getting cut out. I keep on thinking that last one is the last time that's going to happen, but that's not the case. So yeah, I have spent far too much time in hospital and doctors' waiting rooms in my life. I do not choose. I try to spend as little time as possible in that now. That's, again, my personal choice. Do not recommend it to anyone. I've been misdiagnosed and not diagnosed and told it's all in my head or whatever so many times. I can say 10 years of my life was in and out of ERs just for constant misdiagnosis. And I was told I had IBS, I had this, I had that, I had everything except until I finally had this one scan where they finally diagnosed me at 25 years of age. From 15 until 25, I was in incredible amount of pain, abdominal pain, and turns out that my gallbladder hadn't functioned for years, and so they finally took it out. And then I had a whole bunch of other disorders, and finally I read an article in Women's World one day, and when I was 40 years old, and I ticked off, this one article was describing this woman's, she had gluten intolerance, and 9 out of the 10 symptoms she was showing, I was showing.
That's why we said no gluten today.
No gluten today. I actually have had far too much already today. Zero is the ultimate gluten intake for me. I have chronic migraines, chronic pain, joint pain, psoriasis, bloating, weight gain. There was a whole series. I highly recommend the book Wheat Belly if you have mysterious, or like my chronic pain is actually to the point where it's debilitating, and it's like fibromyalgia where it's just awful. Anyway, I read Wheat Belly. I had I don't know. I had the chronic, the psoriasis was the biggest one, and the migraines. As soon as I took gluten out of my diet, within days, after 30 years of chronic psoriasis, within days, my psoriasis disappeared. The weight gain, the bloating, everything that I was complaining about, that the doctors could not diagnose or they're constantly misdiagnosed, suddenly gone. Gluten gone, symptoms gone. So that's my story about gluten. Heidi. Back to Heidi. Heidi was actually part of that journey too. She supported me in getting rid of gluten. She made a lot of dietary changes too. She got lactose out of her diet. She started drinking oat milk and putting oat milk in everything. Or soy milk.
You don't even get charged for it.
Pardon?
Now it's the norm. You don't even get charged for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oat milk at one time you had to make it yourself if you wanted it.
Oat milk?
I did that. I was vegan for a while. As you know, because you're vegan, and I was, you were a pain in the butt when you moved in. Heidi. Heidi was diagnosed with lung cancer in 2008. She was given 3 to 5 months to live without chemo, 8 to 10 with chemo. And her response to the doctor was, "I'm going to be your miracle patient." She was. She had a super positive outlook. This is when I'm, embracing a really happy, positive abundance and law of attraction and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, my sister, my best friend, my everything, gets hit with a terminal fucking illness. Couldn't have happened to a better person. If anybody, it should have been me. Out of the two of us, it should have been me. It wasn't though. It was her. And she was a miracle. She lived 19 months. grief shook me to the core. There was no achieving it. That perfect joy, bliss, and happiness anymore after she died.